So, as you may or may not know, a pretty sizable update called Jade Shadows is going to release in about 2 weeks. And when it does, I'm not gonna be here to cover it, because I'm gonna be on a vacation. Now, I usually try to avoid talking about upcoming features because I like to try stuff out before I say yay or nay. But Jade Shadows is introducing something pretty big, and I'm gonna talk about it. I'm of course talking about the enemy resistance and status rework. They've been faffing around with status for quite a while now. Most recently we've had some changes to puncture and cold to make them more crit oriented, but they haven't really touched enemy resistances. Now for those of you that don't know, enemies in Warframe can have various types of flesh, various types of armor, and various types of shields. Grineer, for example, have cloned flesh, though there are some machinery units like rollers, and then they're split between ferrite and alloy armor. Lower tier units like butchers, lancers, gunners, and scorches have ferrite armor, and higher tier units like elite lancers, bombards, napalms, and such have alloy armor. This creates a problem where one half of the faction is weak to corrosive and the other half to radiation, and while you can mod for that nowadays with the new radiation mods, that wasn't always the case, and there are other examples where you can't do it. So what they want to do in Jade Shadows is unify all the different health, armor, and shield types, so that we don't have 10 billion different types of shields, health, and armor, we just have health, shield, and armor. But this creates another problem, because we have far too many different damage types and status effects for just health, armor, and shields. So their plan is to make factions vulnerable and resistant to different damage types based on the planet they're inhabiting. One of the examples they gave us is that Grineer on Earth might be weak to corrosive and heat. And that I'm not a big fan of. Like, unless there is a setup that you can do that's kind of like universally good, I'm not gonna do that. I don't like remodding my weapons based on the faction I'm fighting. What makes you think I'm gonna remod them for every planet? Though with that said, I do trust them enough to where I'm not concerned about this because they will do it in a smart way. They're not gonna do something dumb. If I were to have a guess, I would say it would be something along the lines of Grineer on lower tier planets will be corrosive and heat, Grineer on higher tier planets will be radiation and cold. That kind of stuff. They even said that new players or catching up players won't see certain faction resistances until a specific quest is completed. Similarly, this will also apply to sub-factions, which are going to be Kuva Grineer, Corpus Amalgams, and Deimos Infested. They're also unifying the Corrupted, another faction that's a bit all over the place with weaknesses and resistances, which is definitely going to be nice too. Because at the moment, you have some low-tier Grineer in there, which are weak to corrosive, you have Bombards, which are weak to radiation, then you have Corpus units, which are weak to magnetic and toxin and all that, and then you have Ancients, which have fossilized armor. So bundling them together to give them one unified resistance and weakness is definitely good. So that's the first part of this, the enemy resistances and weaknesses. It's gonna be pretty cool if they do it well, because once you mod for a specific faction on a specific planet, you're gonna blow through them. What I'm really hoping for with this is that it ends up being a more flexible system, so you can play around with different damage types instead of being like, okay, I'm doing stuff on Earth, I'm gonna need corrosive and heat. I want to be able to play around with different stuff and weird builds, that's how I have fun. The second part of this big change is of course the status rework and rebalancing, because if they're gonna make me use Blast, they better make it worth my time. Like, reducing enemy accuracy? Seriously? Blast, believe it or not, actually used to be fun because it had a knockdown, so anything you would hit would start rolling on the floor. And they're actually doing something with it. The idea now is that Blast will cause an explosion, so you'll get extra AoE damage from Blast, which is nice. I think it's gonna be a nice tool that we can use to add AoE to weapons that don't normally have any. I mean, we can already kind of do that with damage over time. You can run electricity or you can run gas, but having a direct damage type associated with a status that you can use on a weapon is awesome. I can think of numerous weapons off the top of my head that I would run Blast on if it caused additional explosions. Being heavily single target focused weapons just to give them some AoE, or AoE weapons to make them even more ridiculous. It sounds like a lot of fun. They're also iterating on the relatively recent cold changes, so after this update goes live, cold status effects will be able to completely freeze enemies solid upon reaching maximum stacks, making them take even more crit damage. What I also like about this is that they don't want to dethrone the current kings of status. They still want Toxin to be an absolute beast against the Corpus, and they want to keep Vital as the go-to health damage type. So going Slash and Vital should still be a pretty good all-rounder for most factions, and going ham on Toxin should work well against most Corpus. That is the way to go in my opinion. Don't just change everything at once, just give us more options on top of the stuff that we already have. I am somewhat disappointed that they're not making any changes to gas, but maybe it just becomes the infested damage type, which it already kind of is. Gas is pretty damn good against the infested. Oh yeah, and they also seem to be tweaking magnetic as well to make it even more effective against shields, and that's probably gonna go both ways, so after Jade Shadows, getting hit by magnetic like yourself is gonna be even less fun. The reason they did this though is because they're also tweaking armor and shields on enemies. They don't have a concrete set of things they will do to corpus shields, but some examples they gave is enemy shields having a shorter regeneration delay when depleted or hit, and their shields regenerating faster. So the new magnetic is supposed to counter that. And the armor changes, oh boy, let's read it. This is for enemies only, luckily. Number 1, enemy armor will cap out at a certain percentage to give corrosive armor reducing stacks more of an active impact. Number 2, the armor scaling curve will aim to be a bit more spread out as opposed to being bottom heavy. Partial strip from the top end will allow for more consistent damage gains as opposed to needing to have a total armor strip. This makes a lot of sense because especially once you get into Steel Path and you start going into high levels, the enemies have so much armor that even if you strip most of it, they still have a ton of armor. Number 3, have a minimum threshold of any enemy armor. This means that if the enemy has armor, there's a minimum amount they will have. It will not go below it, because they want armor to be impactful. And number 4, health scaling of Grineer enemies will be realigned to an extent to help compensate for the loss in damage reduction and try to maintain a similar time to kill feel. This is actually going to be a bit of a nerf to Slash setups versus the Grineer, because, well, Slash goes straight for health and they're going to have more health now. This, just like all the other changes they're making with this update, will be really good if done right. Because right now you can take most weapons into high level Steel Path, but you need complete armor strip, right? So you either need to bring armor strip on your frame, you need to run Hydroid with corrosive, or you need to run Emerald Charts with corrosive. Or you need to have a really busted setup on your pet so that it can reliably strip armor for you. You can't just bring like a gas or an electric setup to a Grineer mission and expect it to do well if you don't completely strip their armor. Same thing goes for a lot of Cascadia empowered setups. If you're gonna run that against the Grineer, you need to have corrosive and you need Emerald Charts so you can strip them. Otherwise, if you're in Steel Path, you might as well not bother. So, fingers crossed, let's hope that they do it well. But also remember that even if they don't yell at them, just tell them on the forums, look guys, this isn't working, give them feedback and they will change it. They've done it time and time again. Yelling at them won't do a damn thing. But anyway, that's pretty much it, so I thank you very much for watching, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I would love to know what you guys think about these changes, so please let me know in the comment section down below. Then I would also like to extend a special thank you to all the channel members. Thank you very much guys, I really appreciate your support, it means a lot to me, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.